Now it is talk number 2. I'm ready. I am so ready for Shreya. Where are you at, Shreya? There you are.
Hey, hi, Demetrios. Long time.
I'm so excited for this. I heard, a little birdie told me that you have something special to tell us about in this session, but I'm not going to be a spoiler. I am going to let you get after it and go ahead and talk. For those that do not know Shreya, she's a friend of the community. She's doing awesome work when it comes to Guardrails. Check out that open source project. If you have not seen it, I'll drop a link in the chat. And Shreya, the floor is yours. Do you want to share your screen or anything?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. All right, Shreya, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Demetrios. That's a really hard act to follow, but I'll try to do my best. All right, hey everyone, thank you for your time here. My name is Shreya. I am the CEO of Guardrails AI, and my talk is about building the next generation of reliable AI. So a lot of this really comes from being out in the field, building reliable technology for AI systems for the past year or so. So the purpose of this talk kind of is to talk about like what are the set of problems that people who are really serious about building production ready AI systems, like what are the set of problems that they really care about as far as reliability goes. What are the methods and techniques that they kind of look for? What are the challenges with some of them? And how can we build towards a vision of the future to account for a lot of the challenges that we kind of have seen over the last year. Awesome. So before we get started, a little bit about me. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Guardrails AI, but in the past, I've spent a decade working in machine learning. So I started out doing a lot of research in classical AI, deep learning infrastructure, worked in ML for self-driving cars for a number of years, was the tech lead for ML infra. So I've kind of worked across the full stack of research, applied AI, ML infrastructure, and now really working on how do we make generative AI, work like any other piece of infrastructure. Awesome. So we've all kind of seen this over the past year. There's been this amazing fascination with generative AI technology and a lot of excitement about, what it can really do for us. Can I treat mental illness? How will generative AI, will it completely transform sales? Will sales just fundamentally look really, really different from what it has in the past? Even software engineering, how do coding workflows that we participate in day-to-day change? I think so. There's a lot of there's this kind of Pandora's box that has been opened, and for the last year, all of us have been really playing around with this technology and understanding where will this Pandora's box, impact what I do day to day. But at the same time, the reality of adoption for generative AI looks very different from what it has for previous generations. So for example, ChatGPT here had the fastest path to 100 million users compared to like even TikTok or Instagram, Facebook, etc. But if you look at 1 month retention for ChatGPT or some of the other AI first companies compared to 1 month retention for other more traditional software companies, that graph looks a little bit different. So AI first companies tend to have a little lower retention overall. And a lot of this is really kind of from the question of where are the really valuable use cases in AI, right? So what's really fascinating to me is there's about like 200 billion in value that AI will need to create and will need to create fast to justify all of the GPU spend. So NVIDIA is really pumping out those GPUs, at this unprecedented rate. And here's, some analyst estimates about where GPU spending, how much GPU utilization is expected to grow up in the next, couple of years. How do we create enough value out of the AI systems that we're building today to kind of justify that spending, right? So the end consumers of a lot of these technologies will be places like very traditional enterprises like your Walmarts or your GM, et cetera. So how do they get value out of generative AI outside of just, the really fantastic ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot? So another way to kind of phrase the same question is, today, what is the problem that is holding enterprises back from being able to use generative AI effectively? And the answer to this is what, over the last year, we've been kind of working on and we've been kind of seeing. And so this talk is basically a compilation of all of those, amazing like trends and insights. So some enterprises have adopted generative AI, early, and here's some examples of the type of issues that they run into. So this was pretty well publicized. A Chevy dealership built, an AI first chatbot, and then Chris here convinced that chatbot to sell them an $80,000 truck for like $1, no takesies backsies, so it's legally binding. Another example here. So this is, a lot of these are just from like this week, where new lawyers are fined every day for citing cases that AI made up and that don't actually exist, in the real world. The key issue is that enterprises are fundamentally very risk averse, and using generative AI open themselves to a lot of risk that is uncontrolled. So the natural question, if we want to create that huge amount of value that Gen AI offers, how do we really control a lot of that risk? And it is to really dig deep into reliable AI and reliable AI tooling, and that's so that ends up being a very necessary piece of infrastructure in order to kind of make enterprises that are very conservative fundamentally like take on generative AI and create a host of like really awesome products. What is reliable AI? I think there's a lot of talk around this, and it's related to a lot of these similar ideas around responsible AI, AI governance, etc., including guardrails, like the philosophical idea of AI models needing guardrails. But the core idea for reliable AI essentially ends up being this: that you have this really, really powerful system, and this same system can write SQL queries for you. It can write a poem about the 49ers losing the Super Bowl. It can write you an article about the modern data stack. It can do a host of other things, right? But when an enterprise adopts a Gen AI technology in their own use case, they're using it for one single objective. I want to optimize my customer support team, or I want to optimize my, data parsing or structured data extraction. So there's a single objective that I'm solving, and I just want my AI system to be constrained and answer this one problem really, really well, which is, why can't I log into account, or why are my transactions not working, or how do I change my password, etc. Right? Not write a poem about 49ers, not write a SQL query, etc. So what are the methodologies that today enterprises use or enterprises and organizations use to make AI systems reliable? And this is the really interesting part where I basically go through like a set of technologies that we see across the board, RAG, fine tuning, better models, etc., and then talk about what works for those technologies and what makes enterprises and organizations nervous about those technologies, and how we can kind of do better. Before I go into that, I'm going to basically going to be rating these technologies on a set of evaluation criteria, so that there's a holistic picture of like how we can kind of build something that's bigger than the sum of its parts by combining a bunch of these technologies together. So efficacy of any methodology: how effectively is my risk reduced? The cost of implementation, of runtime, of running it in production. Latency: is my application meaningfully slower by adopting this technology compared to if I wasn't? Customizability: how I have a set of like very, very diverse use cases. How well does this work for my specific use case versus the generic use case? Controllability: how much control does this give me over the model output? Am I, just kind of happy with the output, or can I really do I get guarantees, or is it just like light suggestions? And then finally, ease of use. Great. So with that setup, let's dig into the first technology, which most people here would be familiar with: RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. So the idea for retrieval augmented generation is pretty straightforward. Instead of just asking ChatGPT, a question straight away, why don't we first provide it some data from our internal data source that we know to be true and we know to be reliable, and we'll pass it, the question that we want to ask with all of this extra data, and tell an AI system, hey, I have all of this extra context. Given this context, can you tell me how I solve problem A, or how I do this task, etc.? So it's a way of kind of grounding the response of the AI system in something that you can trust. So that's the high level idea. Efficacy, this might be controversial, but it's not great as far as reliable AI is concerned. It does give you answers. It's almost the standard. I actually don't talk to many people that aren't building technologies that are not built on RAG. But it's very, as far as reliability is concerned, it's not it's not very effective in giving you a very reliable AI outcome. Cost is pretty okay. There's some cost of vector dbs associated, but overall, and your prompt length increases, but overall not too bad. Latency is great, customizability is great. You can fix it and configure it however you want. Controllability, again, not great. You're at the end of the day kind of like just asking your LLM to respect the context and the context that you provided it, which might not necessarily be respected. Ease of use is awesome, and a big part of this is like why we see RAG as the ubiquitous solution, everywhere where there's meaningful generative AI technology built out. If I were to summarize the key challenge for RAG as far as reliability is concerned, and unlocking this huge amount of value for the for generative AI use cases, RAG is effectively prompting on steroids. You just really overpower your prompt and tell it to fix a lot of the problems for you. But prompting doesn't offer any guarantees. Awesome. LLM self-evaluation. If we want to build reliable tooling and we have a problem with LLMs, maybe getting like weird responses or incorrect responses, or responses that are just, toxic or have hate speech in them, why don't we just ask the LLM to evaluate itself and tell me if it's good or bad? So that's very, very simple idea is kind of like the idea behind LLM self-evaluation. And there's a host of derivatives of this method around, assertions and self-checking, reflection, etc. Efficacy is, leave something to be desired. Cost, latency, and controllability are all pretty poor for this method. There's a lot of research publications that talk about how it's very hard to trust the outcome of these methods, because they have known biases, etc. Ease of use is really great, right? If you can write an English language prompt, you can ask the LLM to evaluate itself. The key challenge as far as LLM self-evaluation is concerned is, I'm not going to attempt to try reading this, but how do we trust, who will guard the guards? How do we trust the LLM's own evaluation of itself? Isn't that just stacking two things that we can't trust on top of each other? Is that a sufficient lift for enterprises to be able to adopt this technology? RLXF, so RLHF, RLAIF, or just model fine-tuning. So really fine-tuning models so that they work for your AI applications or your use cases. Efficacy is fantastic. Cost, controllability, and ease of use, not so much. If you're getting pre-fine-tuned models that you're using off the shelf, then that's great. But typically, in order to do this yourself, you would need a data set. You would need to have a lot of spend on AI model training, which is, my background was all in like training really large models, really challenging, time-consuming, cost-intensive task to do. Customizability, not great, right? For every criteria that you kind of need to enforce, you need to kind of like build this kind of up from scratch. And the key challenge here is typically, as an enterprise, as an organization, I have a whole custom suite of lists, of like criteria that I want my LLM to follow. So I will have my own like communication guarantees for my own use case. I will have, some requirements for the industry I work in. Like if I'm a consumer facing, tech company versus if I'm a financial institution or a bank, I will have a very different set of concerns. So how do you really customize fine-tuning for all of these sets of concerns and use cases and stakeholders, etc.? Okay, and then the final, I'm obviously biased, the name of my company is Guardrails, but Guardrails is also this technique for, adding checks and verifications on the inputs and outputs of the models to very, very explicitly check for, the set of risks that you kind of care about. So it kind of works as, a layer that surrounds your LLM in technically how it functions. Again, like I said, I'm biased, but I've tried to be really objective here and talk through, how Guardrails kind of situates and compares to a lot of these technologies and and what the challenges are today with this technology. Efficacy is great, cost is great, controllability is great because you can really mix and match and configure a lot of things. Latency and customizability, leave something to be desired. Fundamentally, you're adding this computation after you get the LLM back, and that computation will never end up being free, right? It can be optimized for sure, but it's never free. Ease of use is probably the biggest challenge here and what we've seen like over the past year. So for example, how easy, if you were to encode every set of risks into one input output guardrail, that is a lot of work that needs to be done for every single risk that you need to do, right? And that kind of ends up being the critical challenge here, which is like, am I as a practitioner, as somebody building Gen AI technology, am I supposed to build a guardrail for every type of risk we want to guard against? And that is, over the past year, what the kind of the crux of the issue that we've seen in the past and like what we try to address now. All right, so if I were to summarize the key challenges in AI reliability methodologies, the first is instructions aren't guaranteed. So as somebody who really worked on structured data generation from OpenAI at a time when that wasn't a thing, return only JSON, do not include a preamble to your answer. I've seen variations of this where I have a collaborator of mine who literally has in their prompt, somebody will die if your output doesn't look this way. And even then, there's no guarantee, right? It's just a suggestion or an instruction at the end of the day. Customizability is a necessity. I think this is something that a lot of people miss. And that's a very, very important nuance of AI reliability, which is like what you care about really changes depending on who you are. So maybe something as simple as profanity, right? Like some of us can agree, like most of us can agree that profanity is bad, it's offensive. But I genuinely, personally have had like more than 10 conversations with organizations, enterprises, etc., that were specifically looking for models that can generate profanity because that was the kind of use case. Authenticity was what they were going after. A polite tone can be professional, but if you're building a more social application, it can appear distant. Financial advice, if you are, just building something that doesn't have any regulatory constraints, as smaller companies typically don't, then financial advice is helpful, right? It's a nice little companion that's telling you how to split up your savings, etc. But if you are a financial institution, so if you are JP Morgan, if you are Robinhood, if you're a big company that wants to put out a Gen AI product into production, financial advice is really, really risky, and there's regulation against being able to give financial advice. And finally, the ability to measure. So every time I put any system into production, I really need to understand how does the system work for the set of risks that I care about, right? Financial advice. How many times am I close to giving financial advice? How many times are my mitigations working? All of that ends up being really critical in order to, get enterprises, get organizations to a point where they can push these AI first products out into the market. All right, so looking ahead from all of these amazing, learnings that we've had, how do we address these challenges in an open and collaborative manner so that we're able to, have the fastest possible acceleration to solving the problem of AI reliability and a lot of these key challenges? So that is our, that is the problem that we're working on. And that is what we're really excited to announce, which is the Guardrails Hub, which is live, I think, as of like 20 minutes ago today. So that's been really exciting. And a lot of the key promise that the Guardrails Hub offers, it is that it is an open source platform with very high quality implementations of guardrails for a lot of common use cases. So for example, we talked about, am I supposed to build a guardrail for every single use case, every single risk that I want to capture, right? So the Guardrails Hub is this open source platform that just comes with a lot of those technologies kind of pre-implemented for you. There are plug and play guardrails that can be configured and customized. So a lot of them you can kind of use off the shelf and just, get started with directly. But a lot of them can be customized and can tell you, hey, for this type of risk, what is the best solution out there? What does the state of the art solution kind of look like? So a lot of the benefits of open source technology that we've seen in the past with software and in machine learning with Hugging Face, how do we kind of bring some of that same benefits to open source AI reliability? And then finally, there's templates and recipes for ease of use that tell you for your use case, for your application, how do you really kind of solve the set of AI reliability challenges? So it's fully open source and it comes with batteries included. So 50 plus validators implemented across a bunch of different use cases, a bunch of different risks that you want to capture, input guarding as well as output guarding. So you can track for PII, profanity, jailbreaking attempts. Is this conversation veering off course from, what I intended this conversation to be? Output guardrails for, a host of risks around, profanity, etiquette, tone, data leakage, etc. We talked about latency as a key concern that a lot of organizations have. So guardrails comes with streaming built in. So any guardrails that you mix and match and you apply to your system, comes with streaming. So you can stream validate any output that you get, which really helps with streaming as well as low latency orchestration of all of the guardrails you configure. And each guardrail is configurable, customizable, and fully open source so that you can really adopt it for your own use case. I have like a few quick examples of how you would practically like install and set this up. So we've really worked on making it as easy to use as a lot of other Gen AI technology, as simple as calling your model endpoint, for example. So installing a guardrail is a simple like guardrails hub install, and then the URI of the guardrail. So here we have our anti-hallucination guardrails, and then setting it up is create a guard that uses that specific guardrail that you want to add to your system. For example, if you didn't care about hallucination, but you did care about, only talking about a certain set of topics, let's say only talking about the weather and music and never ever venturing into talking about politics, you can install, the on-topic guardrails with Guardrails Hub install and this URI, and set up and use it by creating a guard that uses the restrict to topic guardrail, specifies only talk about food and cars, never talk about politics, and then validate if that works for your use case. You can mix and match multiple guardrails. So PII and profanity can separately be installed. And then you can create a guard that uses many guardrails, and this will all be streamed. So many guardrails as part of a guard will be streamed, and then the guard will kind of orchestrate it so they run in pretty low latency. Awesome. We're really excited about this. We hope that this, is like a leap forward for reliable AI tooling by really being this collaborative platform for building a lot of AI technology. You can kind of stay in touch with, a lot of the open source projects, as well as our website by link.bio/guardrails AI. And then the Guardrails Hub can be found at hub.guardrailsai.com. And like I said, live as of, I think, 30 minutes ago now. And yeah, really, thank you for your time.
So cool, Shreya. I'm so excited for this. This is awesome. That is so, yeah. I mean, I talk about this all the time, but I think it's hilarious when you brought up that example of somebody buying a car for $1 and it was legally binding, no takesy backsies. So that kind of stuff you don't want happening, right? That is not what you want to have your AI use case be. And there's another few things on here. I mean, the chat has been blowing up, so that is awesome. We're going to ask like 2 or 3 questions and then keep it moving because we've got jam-packed afternoon or morning or wherever you are. But first question, while people are throwing their questions in the chat, we had been discussing, I think, before the actual start, what do we got to do? Like guardrails helps models not hallucinate and it helps them stay on track. Is there any hallucinations as a service type thing that you've heard about? Because I need to get me some of that. That's what I'm looking for. No.
I think you say that as a joke, but that genuinely is the really fascinating thing, right? Like for JP Morgan building a chatbot for customer support, hallucinations are necessarily bad. Like they do not want it. But if you're using ChatGPT to brainstorm or write amazing new music about AI like hallucinations that's never been written before, hallucinations are a good thing. They're almost like creativity. It's a proxy for like creativity, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting thing about guardrails, and it kind of goes back to customizability for me, which is that not every person interprets correctness the same way. Like hallucinations can be good for someone and bad for someone, and as a user you should kind of have the ability to kind of mix and match and really apply what you want and you need for your use case.
Yeah, Yeah, I did like that idea of like, yeah, I'm one of those use cases where I would love a model to curse. I do not care if it is saying bad words to me. It's all right.
I can maybe offline. I can share some jailbreak prompts with you that'll get you there.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm looking for. All right, cool.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
another question that came through that I thought was fascinating, and let me see if I'm understanding it correctly. It's like for different use cases, you can apply different guardrails. And so, for example, I think someone was asking a question about the healthcare industry, and you can kind of like niche it down by use case in the healthcare industry, what you're doing with it, and then you almost have like these little building blocks that you can say, I want 2 or 3 of these guardrails on top of my model. So there's one that's very broad that says like don't talk about anything that's not healthcare related, and then more that are specific. Is that how we understand it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We've seen this, for example, we work with financial institutions, and we've seen this with financial institutions where they care about, again, they're enterprises, so hallucinations are always bad for them. So they always, like, hallucinations are a very broad sweeping thing, right? But they care about like very, very specific things where my enterprise offers like these 3 products. So it's not even, ask me a question about finance. It's ask me a question about these 3 products and these 3 products only. And my response will be about these 3 products only. I won't talk about, if you come and ask me my opinion on the 2024 general election, I won't even give like, not even a neutral response. I don't want to give any response because anything reflects poorly on me. So you can really like whittle it down from the broadest like correctness, like hallucination type things, to really, really specific. This is my use case. This is who I am as an organization, and this is what I care about, and configure and mix and match and play with it.
Yeah, that's cool. That is very cool. So, last question for you, and then we're going to keep rocking. Are there different options for bias guardrails? Sometimes you want certain biases, and other times maybe not so much. So, it seems like it might mitigate some of the debate around bias making its way into LLMs. And I guess just me to tag on to that, do you have a temperature control on how much guardrail you can put on, or is it you slap it on and it's on or off?
Yeah, yeah. So every guardrail is configurable for a lot of the types of guardrails around bias, hallucinations, toxicity, staying on topic. There's a threshold because all of these guardrails under the hood are, machine learning models. That's how you kind of attack. That's the only way to attack this problem. You can't have a rules engine for a lot of these things. So for these model-based guardrails, you can set and configure your sensitivity to them. You can pretty much configure, for example, like toxicity, I think, or profanity. I'm forgetting which one, but you can define what are the types of profanity you care about. Is it, talking about like nationalities, or is it talking about like, race, etc.? So right, so you can really configure like what is the type of toxicity that you're sensitive to, and then filter that out. And so it's all configurable. And I guess it goes back to our underlying learning, which is that customizability again is really key. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to that control. And there was somebody that wrote, I think it was Ninad in the chat, and I thought it was hilarious how they were saying, there's so many broken hearts on this slide. It's making me depressed, something along those lines. So hopefully not anymore. Hopefully just go check out Guardrails Hub and no more broken hearts, especially the day after Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there is oh man. So we've got Holden coming up next. I want to ask these 2 questions because they're so awesome. So Holden, thank you for your patience. I know you're in the background and I've got you coming. The questions that I want to ask are coming through in the chat, and they're, if we use LLMs for guardrails, the UX slows down. Have you done any performance analysis on regex rules versus lookups versus LLM based?
Yeah, I think LLM based is by far the slowest. So some guardrails use LLMs under the hood, and then that's also why we try to build like model specific guardrails, right? Like we have hallucination guardrails that we're releasing. That there's one hallucination guardrails that uses LLMs under the hood, and it is performant, but it is so slow But the models that work really well are fast and are competitive with these models are really, really task specific, very precise, smaller models. And that's kind of like the agenda forward. Right, which is that you get the sophistication of LM based guardrails, but without the kind of like a speed or slowdown from that. Maybe like yeah, we have like some benchmarks that we plan to share that aren't public yet about like rule based, almost next to no latency, especially with streaming. Model based lookup, model based guardrails, also very, very low latency, especially with streaming and the orchestration that we have. LM based guardrails add like a little bit of lift, which is also why we kind of mix and match and only use that as a fallback. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. We're going to keep it moving. And
Yeah.
Shreya, thank you so much. Also, huge announcement from you today, right? You raised a boatload of money. So
Yeah. Yeah, come check it out.
congrats on that.
I haven't read it yet, but I think the TechCrunch article popped out just as I was getting onto the green room for this talk. So yeah, go check out the article. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Demetrius. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. This is great. Thanks so much. And anybody that wants to continue talking to Shreya, go ahead, hit her up on LinkedIn and on Twitter where she is